Have you ever wondered why the very women men crave the most are often the ones they can never truly have? The ones who ignite a hunger so deep it borders on madness, yet leave behind nothing but ashes and revelation. She is not the kind of woman you meet. She is the kind you remember. The forbidden goddess. The storm that strips a man of his illusions, forcing him to face the ruins of his own soul. And though he may call her destructive, what she truly destroys is not him, but his comfort, his complacency, and his carefully constructed mask. In every man lies a silent war between the divine and the broken. Jung called it the battle between the ego and the unconscious, between who he believes himself to be and the forces that live beneath that belief. When such a man meets a woman who embodies his unclaimed shadow, his buried desire, his shame, his need for power and submission, something ancient awakens. He becomes both terrified and addicted. Because she is not merely a woman. She is the mirror of his own forbidden nature. She doesn't just attract him, she exposes him. The moment he feels her presence, his mind begins to fracture between awe and fear. Her silence feels like judgment. Her confidence, a threat. Her sensuality, a sermon on the parts of himself he has long condemned. The more she remains unattainable, the more he projects onto her, turning her into an altar for his fantasies and an executioner for his pride. What he calls love is often projection. What he calls heartbreak is the collapse of that illusion. For centuries, men have tried to name her. Lilith, the siren, the femme fatale, the devourer. But behind every name is the same fear, that a woman could hold a mirror so pure it reflects not her sin, but his. That she could embody the freedom he denies himself. That she could move through the world without needing permission. Her power does not come from seduction, but from self-possession. She doesn't chase validation. She emanates inevitability. And that is what terrifies him. That she doesn't need him to exist. You've seen it before. A man meets such a woman and suddenly his logic collapses. He begins to oscillate between worship and resentment, desire and destruction. He praises her as divine one moment and damns her as manipulative the next. Why? Because she refuses to fit into his archetype of the good woman. She will not become his mother, his caretaker, his moral compass. Instead, she stands as the embodiment of the anima, the feminine image within his unconscious, both muse and tormentor. Jung warned that when a man projects his anima onto a real woman, he doesn't see her. He sees himself disguised as her, and the more powerful she is, the more violently he resists the mirror. To the forbidden goddess, love is not a transaction, it is alchemy. She doesn't soothe his ego. She tests his soul. She calls him not to comfort, but to consciousness. She doesn't promise safety. She demands awakening. And this is why most men cannot stay. They came for pleasure, but she offers transformation. They came to conquer, but she unveils their vulnerability. What he thought would make him feel powerful instead makes him feel seen. Naked in front of a gaze that penetrates beyond his bravado, she becomes the priestess of his undoing. And yet, beneath the chaos, something sacred occurs. When he leaves, broken and resentful, part of him has already been reborn, because she did what no one else dared. She forced him to confront himself. He will curse her, blame her, write poems about her cruelty, but deep inside, he will know she awakened the man he was meant to become. For the forbidden goddess doesn't destroy men. She burns away their falseness. She devours only what is weak, shallow, and afraid. But not every woman can hold that fire without being consumed by it. To embody the forbidden goddess is to stand on the edge between love and loneliness, between desire and detachment. It requires a heart that can feel everything yet cling to nothing. You may wonder, can such a woman ever be truly loved? Or is she destined to walk alone, misunderstood by those who mistake her depth for danger? Perhaps the truth is this: she is not meant to be understood by those who still fear their own reflection. She exists to awaken, not to belong. And you, if you have ever felt the burden of being too much, too deep, too mysterious, too untamable, know this: you are not too much. You are precisely as vast as the men who cannot hold you claim you are. They fear you because you remind them of everything they have yet to claim within themselves. Their desire is not for you. It is for the parts of them that come alive in your presence. You are not their destruction. You are their initiation. Every forbidden goddess begins as a woman who was once silenced. Somewhere in her past, she learned that her sensitivity was a flaw, her intensity a curse, her longing a weakness. The world told her to be smaller, softer, quieter, to shrink her fire so others could feel safe around her light. And for a while, she obeyed. She learned to smile instead of speak, to suppress the storm that lived inside her chest. But suppression has a way of fermenting into power. What was once shame becomes fuel. What was once silence becomes song. One day, the dam breaks, and what emerges is not a nice woman, but an awakened one. That awakening is not gentle. It is the death of the obedient self. When she stops begging for love and starts embodying it, when she stops explaining her depth and starts living it, she becomes something dangerous to the shallow, not because she seeks to harm, but because she can no longer pretend. Her energy shifts from seeking approval to radiating presence, and that shift alone dismantles entire illusions. Men sense it before she even speaks. There's something about her that unsettles them, not in a physical sense but in a spiritual one. Her gaze lingers too long. Her silence demands honesty. Her laughter holds both pleasure and defiance. She has seen too much of human nature to be fooled by charm, and too much of her own pain to judge another's. She does not seduce, she reveals. Her magnetism lies in the paradox she carries, the ability to be tender and untouchable, loving yet unpossessable. In Jungian terms, she has integrated her shadow. She no longer rejects her desire, her anger, or her ambition. These forces no longer control her because she has looked them in the eye and claimed them as her own. She has faced her inner darkness not as an enemy, but as a teacher. This integration gives her a serenity that men mistake for mystery. They call her enigmatic because she no longer dances for validation. They call her cold because she doesn't crumble when they withdraw affection. But what they fail to see is that her calmness is not detachment. It's mastery. She no longer reacts because she understands the nature of projection. To such a woman, attraction is a mirror, not a prize. When a man approaches, she feels the frequency of his energy before he says a word. If he seeks a mother, she will feel the heaviness of his wounds. If he seeks conquest, she will sense the hollowness behind his confidence. If he seeks awakening, she will see the fire trembling in his soul, and that she might allow, but only if he's ready to meet her not as a fantasy, but as an equal. And this is where most men falter. They want her essence, not her truth. They want to feel her power, not understand it. They want to taste the forbidden without being transformed by it. They crave the ecstasy of her touch, but not the reflection it brings. Because being loved by such a woman is not comfortable. It's clarifying. Her love doesn't flatter the ego. It exposes it. When she touches you, she doesn't touch your skin. She touches your soul, and souls rarely come away unchanged. He may call her dangerous because she doesn't yield to his expectations. He may accuse her of being manipulative because she won't play by his emotional rules. But beneath that accusation is fear, the primal fear of losing control. To love her, he must relinquish dominance and meet her in vulnerability. He must confront the chaos within himself instead of projecting it onto her. For the forbidden goddess does not destroy men, she simply refuses to absorb their unhealed wounds. And yet she is not without compassion. Beneath her strength is a deep tenderness, not the kind that seeks to save, but the kind that understands. She sees the wounded boy behind the proud man. She knows his anger is often grief in disguise, his coldness a mask for abandonment. She forgives him, but she will not rescue him, because she has already learned what happens when she trades her divinity for love. She disappears. If you've ever been that woman, the one who feels too intense, too loving, too deep for the world, understand this. Your fire was never meant to make others comfortable. It was meant to light the way. You are not here to soothe fragile egos or to earn worthiness through sacrifice. You are here to remember the truth of your power, that love without boundaries is self-destruction, and passion without discernment is imprisonment. The forbidden goddess is the woman who finally learns to hold both, the softness of love and the edge of sovereignty. She knows that to be truly loved, she must remain free, and to remain free, she must be willing to lose anything that demands her self-betrayal. That is the sacred paradox of her existence. She can only be possessed by someone who does not try to own her. There comes a moment when the forbidden goddess realizes that her very existence is a provocation. Not because she intends to challenge, but because she simply is. Her authenticity becomes a mirror that few can endure. In a world where conformity passes for love, she represents something untamed, a reminder of everything others repress. Her presence awakens the dormant wildness in both men and women alike, stirring a hunger for truth that cannot be silenced once tasted. Men, in particular, stand at a crossroads when they meet her. One path leads toward awakening, the painful process of dismantling the ego's illusions. The other toward destruction, the attempt to possess her, control her, or reduce her power into something manageable. Most choose the latter because it feels safer to call her dangerous than to admit she evokes the parts of themselves they have buried alive. You see, when a man meets such a woman, he's not encountering her, he's encountering himself, reflected through her mystery. His desire is not purely for her body or beauty, but for the wholeness she represents. She embodies everything he secretly longs to integrate: sensitivity without weakness, power without domination, sensuality without shame. She is the bridge between the divine and the human, between instinct and intellect. To love her requires him to transcend the duality of his own psyche, to reconcile his inner masculine with his neglected feminine. And that is the most terrifying journey of all. He senses that being with her will require transformation. No more pretending. No more spiritual bypassing or emotional detachment disguised as strength. She will demand presence, not through words, but through vibration. She can feel when he's hiding, when his words are armor instead of truth. And that awareness disarms him. She can love him without illusion, but she cannot love him without honesty. And so he faces a test disguised as attraction. Will he choose to awaken or to possess? Will he rise to meet her consciousness, or will he attempt to reduce her light into something controllable? Many will try the latter, confusing domination with safety. They will play power games, withdraw affection, attempt to make her doubt her worth. Anything to restore the illusion of control. But it never lasts, because you cannot manipulate someone who no longer fears loss. That is her true power, detachment born from wholeness. She doesn't need to chase because she no longer believes that love must be earned. She doesn't cling because she understands that everything meant for her flows in alignment, not anxiety. She doesn't compete, compare, or beg, not out of arrogance but out of reverence for her energy. She has learned the most difficult lesson of all, that love without self-respect is just self-abandonment wearing perfume. Still, her detachment is often misread. The insecure call it arrogance. The unhealed call it aloofness. But in truth, it is devotion to her inner peace. Once a woman has touched the stillness within herself, the place where validation and rejection lose meaning, no man can truly own her again. She belongs only to her becoming. And ironically, it is that very freedom that makes her irresistible. Because deep down, every man dreams of such a woman, one who cannot be controlled, who forces him to evolve simply by existing. But dreams and reality rarely meet on equal ground. The moment he realizes she will not bend to his will, admiration turns to resentment. He begins to call her complicated, high maintenance, cold. But what he truly means is, I can't manipulate her. He mistakes her discernment for distance, her boundaries for barriers. What he doesn't see is that her refusal to play small is an act of love, not just for herself, but for the possibility of something real. When two conscious souls meet, love becomes a mirror, not a drug. It ceases to be an escape and becomes an initiation. The forbidden goddess doesn't need you to save her. She needs you to see her, and in seeing her, to see yourself. But that level of intimacy terrifies those still governed by their shadows. Because to stand before such a woman is to realize how many masks you still wear. And so, many men leave, not because she's too much, but because they aren't ready to meet themselves. They go back to what is easy, predictable, familiar, the illusion of control. But they will never forget her. Her scent lingers in their memory, not as perfume, but as a presence. She becomes the ghost that haunts their comfort, the whisper that reminds them there was once a moment when they could have awakened, and chose not to. You may not realize it, but this archetype lives in you too. The part of you that refuses to be silenced, that won't settle for surface affection, that craves something raw, true, and transformative. That is your inner goddess, the part of your psyche that doesn't want a man to complete you, but to meet you. When you stop fearing that power, you stop attracting those who fear it too. The forbidden goddess does not seek to dominate. She seeks to awaken. Her presence in a man's life is never random. It's an initiation chosen by the unconscious. Jung wrote that every relationship is a psychological process, a mirror reflecting our inner evolution. And, when the forbidden goddess enters his orbit, she arrives not as a lover, but as a catalyst. She burns through illusion like sacred fire, and few can stand the heat. In the beginning, he is enthralled. Her energy feels like poetry in motion, the kind of aliveness he's always craved but could never name. She doesn't seduce him, she reminds him of what it feels like to be fully alive. But the more he feels, the less control he has. He cannot categorize her, cannot predict her, cannot master her. She lives in paradox. Passionate yet serene, soft yet unyielding, tender yet sovereign. And this paradox confuses him because he has been taught to love through possession, not presence. To love such a woman is to unlearn everything he thought love was. It is not to conquer, but to surrender. Not to her, but to the truth she evokes within him. She doesn't ask for devotion in words, but in awareness. She demands his wholeness, not his performance. And that is where most falter. They want to keep their masks and still be seen. They want her depth without facing their shadows, but she will not allow it. Her energy exposes inconsistency like light through fog. Every insecurity, every avoidance, every unhealed wound begins to surface in her presence. He may accuse her of stirring chaos, but it is his own soul that trembles, because deep down, he senses that if he stays, he will never be the same again. To love her requires him to confront his control, his fear of abandonment, his hunger for validation. It requires him to step beyond the illusion of dominance into the truth of vulnerability, and that, for most men, is unbearable. So he runs, or he attacks, or he tries to reduce her to something ordinary. But nothing ordinary can contain her. The forbidden goddess doesn't fight for her throne. She is the throne. Her energy doesn't beg to be chosen. It demands alignment. And so she lets him go, not out of pride, but out of clarity, because she knows the difference between love and attachment. Attachment says, "Don't leave, I need you to feel whole." Love says, "Go if you must. I was whole before you came." Her solitude is not loneliness, it's sacred space. She uses it to cultivate the inner kingdom that no rejection can shake. She pours her energy into her art, her purpose, her body, her mind. She doesn't withhold love. She redirects it inward until it overflows. And when it overflows, it becomes magnetism. Men feel it, that quiet confidence that doesn't need to announce itself. The kind of energy that says, "I have already met myself. You cannot offer me what I already possess." This is the secret of her allure. She no longer seeks power through validation. She no longer performs femininity to be seen. She embodies it. Her sensuality is not a strategy, it's a vibration. Her words are not designed to please, they are meant to awaken. Her presence doesn't compete for attention, it commands reverence. She is not chasing a partner, she is attracting resonance. And when such a woman meets a man who has done his work, the one who has confronted his own shadow, healed his mother wound, embraced his softness without losing his strength, then something extraordinary happens. The polarity between them ceases to be a battlefield and becomes a dance. He doesn't fear her intensity, he matches it. He doesn't try to control her freedom, he honors it. He doesn't flinch at her power, he is inspired by it. Together, they create a union that is not built on need, but on truth. But until then, she walks alone. Not bitterly, but beautifully. Because solitude for her is not absence, it's alignment. Every ending becomes initiation. Every heartbreak, a rite of passage. Every man who fails to meet her becomes another mirror polished by experience, preparing her for the one who can. And you, if you recognize yourself in her, must remember this. Do not dim your fire to be understood. The ones meant for you will not be blinded by your light. They will rise to meet it. The world may call you too much, too intense, too wild. Let them. Those words are confessions, not criticisms. They reveal what others have lost touch with in themselves. For the forbidden goddess is not here to make sense to the world. She is here to remind it of the sacred chaos from which creation itself is born. Her purpose is not to be tamed, but to teach. Not to soothe egos, but to ignite souls. And every man who meets her, whether he stays or leaves, will carry her energy within him forever, as both a wound and a blessing. In the mythic theater of human love, the forbidden goddess is the archetype that ends illusions. She is not a woman who plays at power, she is power in motion, clothed in grace and contradiction. Her beauty is not in her form, but in her awareness. She knows the game, sees the masks, and yet chooses to move through the world with compassion instead of bitterness, because she understands something most never will. People fear what reminds them of their lost wholeness. Every man who crosses her path carries a hidden longing to be undone, not destroyed, but released. His soul yearns for someone who will strip away the armor of intellect and ego until he remembers his original softness. The forbidden goddess does not promise comfort, she promises rebirth. But rebirth demands death, the death of the self that clings, controls, and pretends. This is why men resist her. They sense that loving her means losing themselves. And they're right, but only the false self dies. In the language of Jung, she embodies the force of individuation itself, the drive of the psyche to become whole. She awakens the anima in men and the shadow in women. She is the call to integration disguised as desire. To those who are ready, she becomes a guide. To those who are not, she becomes chaos. And this duality has followed her through myth and memory. From Lilith's defiance to Aphrodite's radiance, from Medea's rage to Mary Magdalene's redemption. Every culture has tried to either demonize or sanctify her, never realizing that she is both, because she must be. Her path is not easy. To live as her is to walk through fire with grace. The world will misunderstand her depth, envy her peace, and crucify her freedom. She will be adored and abandoned, idealized and condemned. She will taste devotion that feels like worship and betrayal that feels like death. But through it all, she will rise, not because she is unbreakable, but because she has learned how to break beautifully. Each heartbreak becomes wisdom. Each rejection becomes refinement. She learns to love without losing herself, to give without depleting, to feel without clinging. She no longer confuses pain with passion or control with care. She learns that real intimacy isn't found in intensity, but in safety, the kind of safety born from two souls who have both done their inner work. And slowly, she transforms from the forbidden goddess into the awakened one. Her power softens, her presence deepens. The fire that once burned to test others now burns to illuminate. She no longer needs to destroy illusions. Her silence does that for her. When she enters a room, the energy shifts, not because she demands attention, but because her authenticity rearranges everything false around her. You can sense her energy, the calm, the poise, the quiet confidence that doesn't need to prove anything. Her eyes carry the weight of lifetimes, not of suffering, but of seeing. She doesn't talk about her worth. She embodies it. She doesn't chase love, she channels it. And that is why she becomes irresistible to consciousness itself, because she has become a vessel for truth. To the men who can meet her, she is no longer forbidden. She is sacred, no longer the destroyer, but the revealer. She doesn't want to lead or follow. She wants to flow. She doesn't want to be worshipped. She wants to be understood. And for the man who sees her not as a challenge but as a reflection, love with her becomes a spiritual practice. It is no longer about desire, it's about remembrance. But this union can only exist between equals, two souls who have walked through their shadows and emerged unafraid of light. Until then, she waits, not impatiently but in sovereignty, because the goddess within her knows that real connection never requires chasing. It requires becoming. And you, if you are this woman or becoming her, understand this. The journey of power is the journey of surrender. Not to another, but to your truth. You will lose people who cannot meet you. You will outgrow those who feed on drama. You will learn that solitude can be more nourishing than counterfeit connection. And in that sacred solitude you will remember, you were never forbidden, only misunderstood. When a woman reclaims the parts of herself the world told her to hide, her sensuality, her discernment, her voice, her stillness, she doesn't become dangerous. She becomes divine. Because she no longer seeks love from the world. She is love in the world. And when she reaches that point, something miraculous happens. She no longer triggers men. She transforms them. Those who once feared her intensity now find peace in her presence. Those who once tried to control her now learn from her calm. Because she no longer mirrors their wounds, she mirrors their potential. This is the final alchemy of the forbidden goddess. She turns fear into reverence, projection into presence, desire into devotion. The world may never understand her, but those who are meant to will rise to meet her frequency. For she is not here to be remembered as the woman who destroyed, but as the woman who awakened. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.